Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Southern Outdoorsman Podcast. This week we're doing some listener Q&As, which there are timestamps down in the description if you want to skip ahead to those Q&As. But in the meantime, we got a bunch of bucks to talk about because we've had a productive 2 weeks. Well, I have.
I was going to say, let's clarify the story real quick.
How you doing, Jacob?
Doing good. Not as good as Andrew.
Andrew's doing good.
Yeah, Andrew killed 3 bucks in 6 days.
Yeah.
In 2 different states. So you're on a little hot streak. You know, we'll see if you got. It's all great and dandy, but you still got to kill the big deer on the club.
Yeah.
The number one target hit list buck, and he's getting close.
Yeah, we talked about on the last outro how I guess it was the last one. My stepdad, we had a cold front come in. I went to a spot that I've been eyeballing for a while. We found it in turkey season, found the buck sign there, sent my stepdad to it a week later, and he had that big 10-point come in. Number one hitless buck. Had him come in, missed him, smoked the limb.
It happens. Happens to the best of us.
So then we went to Arkansas, which y'all are going to hear all about Arkansas on Monday's episode. That's coming out this coming Monday.
Yep.
So immediately after this one, where we're going to talk about our Arkansas success. I didn't actually show this buck on there because I left him at home and we didn't record here. But this is the buck, one of the bucks I got in Arkansas. So pretty good 8-point, big old chocolate rack. If you're not watching on YouTube, then you should be because you'll be able to see this joker.
Yeah, you're missing out.
But anyways, shot that buck on day 2 in Arkansas. Ended up tagging out.
Actually, grab that deer again because I don't know if you realize we're both wearing, this dark brown. You can hold it down here. You can see it a lot better up against us.
Oh, that's true.
There you go. So,
yeah, it's a pretty good buck.
Yeah, that's Andrew's buck right there.
So we were initially slated to be in Arkansas from, I guess, the 11th to the 18th. We had like 8 days to hunt. And again, y'all are going to hear all about it, but we ended up killing 5 bucks between the 4 of us. So it was
in 5 days.
Yeah, 5 bucks in 5 days.
And really, it was 4 bucks in 3 days.
Yes.
And then we had a lull of activity, and then you shot your last deer.
It's funny how you go from like highs of highs to lows of lows, because it's like, dude, we started so hot on that trip. It was like, bam, killed a buck, killed a buck, killed a buck, killed a buck. And then day 4 rolled around, and I saw like one doe, and I did a dark to dark sit. I'm like, it's over. Like, there's no more deer.
The rut's done.
And then I killed a buck the next day and tagged out. So I killed, again, y'all are going to hear about it all on Wednesday. It was me, Jacob. Monday. Why did I say Wednesday?
I don't know.
Jacob's uncle Anthony, who people have heard on the podcast before. Anthony killed a hammer. He killed a huge buck. So... And then Thomas, Jacob's brother, Thomas tagged out as well. So anyways, to get to where we're going today, I ended up tagging out on Wednesday. And, I brought Boone up there because I wanted to go and do some like woodcock hunting or just whatever kind of upland opportunity there might have been around there. Duck season wasn't quite open yet, so I couldn't go duck hunting. And throughout the week, I heard like one woodcock all week. And so I was like, I don't know if I really want to go like tromping around, during gun season with him for like, not very many woodcock. If we were hearing like a bunch of them, it would have been different. But I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go ahead and bounce, go back to Alabama, save an extra vacation day because I took vacation to go do this from work. So save that vacation day so I can use that for Bama's rut. And then I can catch the Alabama gun opener, which was the 18th. So it was on that Saturday. And so that's what I did. Came home early, and Saturday it was time to hit the club again.
Yeah.
And go back out there and catch Alabama's gun opener. You got anything to add before I start rolling into this?
Oh, I mean, dude, it was just. I mean, y'all are gonna hear about this, but it was so slow because I stayed up there until I left Sunday, but I hunted through Saturday, and it went from like us seeing like 15 deer sit to like. In like 4 days, I think I saw like 6 deer total.
Oh, yeah.
And hunting really, really good spots, spots that, either I've had success with before or throughout this hunt, like we've been having a ton of encounters and it just like that deer got abducted by aliens.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, or they crawled on the ground. So, that was interesting. But I definitely think we experienced up in Arkansas, and we talked about this a little bit on Monday's episode, like more bucks being locked down with does throughout the week.
Yeah.
And that's what I really think had happened because we were still seeing some doe movement, but like just even like a small rack buck, like you just weren't seeing them moving a whole bunch. And there were so many does in that area I think that a lot of those bucks really just got locked down because the first day we got there, first 2 days we got there, everybody was seeing a little bit of kind of like some rutting activity. Every day you saw had like black tarsal glands on them.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Except that buck. Except where'd it go?
well, I was saying the does specifically.
yeah.
But yeah, other than this buck right here, this buck Andrew killed didn't seem to want to take part in the rut. So anyway, but that was really a challenge because it seemed like they got locked down and just like the overall buck movement just ceased and stopped.
Yeah.
Even like we had cell cameras out and it just like stopped, like all that movement stopped. But the thing is. And also, we were hunting during a little warming front. They had a cold front like end of October.
Yeah, warming trend all week.
All week. Every day was a little bit warmer than the next until like one of the days. I think it got like 70. It's like mid 70s, mid to low 70s. And that's funny enough is when Anthony killed his big deer in like at 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yep.
But that was, I think, a huge factor for us. But also, I'm like, dude. Because that gun season, throughout the state, I think the whole state of Arkansas, like that gun season lasts, it's like 3 weeks or something, like 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks, something like that. And I think, you had that really good activity, that first part of the gun hunt for the first few days, and it slacked off. And I bet you if you were there like this week right now, like when we're recording this,
it's probably getting back.
It's probably,
on.
The bucks are kind of broken back. They're kind of, they bred that doe. They're kind of looking for another doe. They're kind of moving a little bit more.
Yeah.
And it made me wonder while I was pulling all those cameras. Whether or not that we would start having some more big bucks show back up. So
yeah, I think you probably would have. I think you're right about that. Which again, we covered that in Monday's episode. So y'all get to hear all about that on Monday in more depth, and we'll probably end up talking about it a little bit more as the year goes on, as we kind of look back and reflect, because it was a really intense week of hunting. So that kind of sets the stage for Alabama and coming back to Alabama for the gun opener, which, by the way, for the gun opener, we got these nice Southern Outdoorsman's orange hats, which we have not very many of them left. So if you want one, you better go snatch it up real quick because they're going to be gone probably by
the time this podcast comes out.
So
if you're one of the first people listening or watching this, if you want a Southern Outdoorsman Blaze orange hat, which by the way, there's been some killers who've killed some giant deer in this hat.
Yes.
Very notably, Michael Perry killed a state record buck in one of these hats, one of the first versions of these hats, along with a ton of others. So, again, if you want one of these Southern Outdoorsman Blaze Orange hats or any of the other hats, and I've got one of the hats on as well right now, these old school.
the chocolate chip, baby.
Yeah, the old school camo hats and these brown on brown, as Andrew calls the chocolate chip hat, just came back in stock. So, go pick them up. Link down below. In the show notes, and we appreciate everybody that's already purchased hats. Y'all have been awesome with supporting us, so thank you again. And kind of working on some other stuff at some point. So trying to figure out some other stuff that y'all would really like. Because I got a message last night from a big listener who's like, "Dude, when are y'all gonna come out with some T-shirts and hoodies and all that?"
I saw that email we got about T-shirts, by the way.
Okay,
they got good prices.
Yeah, I know.
So we might have to do some T-shirts, man. Anyways, all right. So that sets the stage. We came back to Alabama, and. I mean, again, if people have been listening to the podcast, we got a big 10-point on camera at my hunting club.
Yep.
There's a group of bucks out there, and it just kind of depends on how my year's going, like what my hit list is made out of. So now that I killed a doe on my club earlier this year, and then I killed 2 bucks in Arkansas, so I'm like real good on deer meat. I try to kill 4 a year just for me and my family. If I kill more than that, I got the freezer space. Well, I mean, we'll definitely eat it, but also I'll share it with other people. Like I'll give some to my parents. I'll give some to Tiffany's parents, my sister. So because the freezer's already really good, I'm gonna be really picky.
Yeah.
So that leaves out of the 14 or 15 bucks that we've gotten on camera, or maybe it's like 12. We've gotten a bunch of different bucks on camera at my hunting club. A lot of them are kind of borderline bucks. There's 3 that I'm real interested in. There's the Big 10, there's a Big 8-point, and there's a Big 6-point. So
no, the Big 8's not the one that. Well, no, I'm not gonna jump to the story, but you didn't see that one from the
No.
Okay.
No. So there's a couple spots that my stepdad Mike and I went and prepped on the hunting club for gun season specifically that I was really excited about. And it's on a part of the property that not a lot of people hunt. It's thick.
Well, give us some details, Andrew.
It's nasty. Listen. I don't know if anybody in the club listens. That's why I'm like, a little cautious. A little cautious. Now, again, the club is made up of like food plot hunters. I mean, these guys, again, nothing wrong with it, but
they wear out these food.
They wear out the food plots.
It's so funny, especially like because I've never been in a hunting club. Like I used to go as a kid as a guest to like some of my uncle's hunting clubs or leases they were in, and their method of operation was pretty much like if you're gonna hunt a food plot, you drive a truck in, but you're still parking hundreds of yards away and then walking to the spot.
Not in this club.
This club, they're parking their truck
8 feet
from the shooting house on the food plot.
Yeah.
Like it is crazy. And I'm like,
yeah.
And then they're like, come to find out, they're like, man, we ain't seen, there's no deer out here. The deer numbers aren't doing great.
Yeah. I had one guy in the club talking to me. He's like, the deer are really hurting out here. They're not doing good. They don't have any food. There's too many coyotes. Every excuse in the book, man. And just fast forwarding, I don't think I've killed a buck this fat ever in Alabama. So they're doing fine.
Well, not just that, but you've seen a ton of does. We've seen a ton of does.
Yeah, a lot of does.
It's just they're not on those food plots, and it's like, which partially to deal with, most of us in the Southeast, up until the time we recorded this podcast, we just had a big rain come through, which is the first significant rain we've had in months now.
Yeah.
But it's been extremely dry, so food plots haven't done great. Very few people actually have decent looking food plots.
Yeah.
And that was probably part of the reason why a lot of these guys are upset. They put all this work in. And you helped out as well in the workday of putting in food plots. But, like, when we went out there, it was during bow season. We were spot checking some stuff after we get done hunting. It might have been, I don't know, a day or two after you had shot your doe. And the food plots just looked
bad.
Like dirt patches.
Yeah.
I mean,
that didn't look good.
And now I'm sure, with some more moisture and everything, they're probably going to turn out a little bit better if there's still seed on the ground that the birds didn't pick up. But it's so funny seeing that culture. And I'm sure every hunting club's a little bit different, but like it seems like a lot of the guys in your hunting club are there's a decent amount of older guys, and then there's a decent amount of those guys that are kind of like they're serious deer hunters, but they're serious food plot hunters. And the problem is, especially with y'all's club, is there's only a handful of like bigger food plots. And I would say bigger, like the biggest one may be like half an acre in size, maybe.
Yeah.
So it's not like you have these huge food plots that you can kind of get in, get out clean. These are a lot of small food plots. So if you do have deer come in right at dark, you're blowing them out getting out of the tree stand. Or out of the shooting house or the blind or pop-up blind, whatever it is. And, it really sets up as an uphill battle for a lot of those dudes that hunt those food plots.
Yeah, so I'm just avoiding hunting those food plots, essentially. And, I mean, the deer, I'm sure they end up in them. I actually haven't ran any cameras on those food plots, which I kind of want to start doing just to see what is showing up and when they're showing up.
Yeah.
But I mean, we're on them so good already, just hunting in the woods, that I don't really need to. You know, it's just, and one thing about this club too is I don't think there's actually a ton of deer on it. Now, the more I hunt it, the more I feel like it's definitely not what I would consider high deer density, and you just don't find a lot of buck sign on the club.
No, but they're in pockets. That's the thing.
100%.
It's kind of like a lot of the public land that we've hunted, where like, there's decent deer numbers, but like you could go through hundreds of acres and find very little deer sign. And then all of a sudden you get in this 30, 40 acre chunk, and it's like sign is everywhere. There's droppings, there's scrapes, there's rubs, you're seeing deer. And I think your club sets up a lot like that, where there's good habitat like in different areas of the club, but like some of the areas that have like some what I would call like some of the better habitat don't have a ton of deer in them right now.
Yeah. It's kind of weird. Yeah,
it's really weird. Especially don't have any buck sign. Like there's parts of the club that you look at, you're like, dude, there's gonna be scrapes and rubs here, and you go in there and you walk all of it, and there's not any fresh sign. There's old sign from last year, like old rubs from the rut, but nothing fresh. And it's like, this is the craziest thing I've ever seen. Because like if I saw this on a map and I was going on public land, I'd feel pretty confident I'm going to go kill a buck. And the funny thing is, those areas, I don't think we've ever seen a rack buck in those areas.
No, I haven't.
Yeah,
I haven't. It's weird. And one thing we talk about is having a longer term strategy for whatever you're hunting, be it public or private or your own land, like whatever it is. This is my second year in this club, and I almost joined a different club instead of rejoining the one I'm in. And ultimately, because I didn't get anything really on camera last year that I was excited about. I got a bunch of scrub bucks and young deer and just weird looking, freaking just not great looking bucks.
Cool bucks.
Yeah, cool bucks. Oh, that's a reference to Monday's episode that y'all hear. And So I almost didn't join it, but I was like, you know what? I'm confident that there's stuff here that is worth hunting. I just haven't found it yet,
Yeah.
or I haven't quite honed in. So year 2, like, baby, we are on them.
Mhm.
We are on them year 2, and
Well-
that's what I'm talking about.
Well, it's just like going back to an episode, and we need to look up Kevin Tullis's episode.
Oh yeah, here, I'll look it up for you.
And
Give the
it's
whole
like
spiel.
talking about, I think, Big Buck Sanctuaries or something like that was like the title. But Kevin Tullis is a guy from Alabama who we've had on the podcast a couple times now, and we had a whole episode with him. Especially if you're in a hunting club, I'd highly recommend this episode that Andrew's going to look up, because he has
206.
episode 206 was the title.
Yep, all the way back to 2020.
What's the title?
Finding and Hunting Big Buck Sanctuaries with Kevin Tullis, episode 206.
So
Look it up.
that episode, he talks. It's specifically on his hunting club strategy. So he hunts public land and hunting clubs, and his strategy for hunting clubs is kind of similar like to what you're doing. Like he's like you may have success that first year in it, but really that first year you're just trying to learn the lay of the land. You're learning how the other hunters are hunting it, and you're finding the pockets where guys aren't going into.
Yeah.
And that's where you're kind of capitalizing on, like, finding and killing a lot of these bucks. And that's what he talked about. He's like, year 2 is when you start cleaning up. Like year 2, you kill, a couple of those real big deer, and typically year 3 they vote you out or you don't have a spot in the club. And I think Kevin said he'd been kicked out of, like, I don't know, 5 or 6 clubs because, he'd be the only one to kill 1 or 2 or maybe even 3 big bucks in a year.
Yeah.
And nobody else had killed anything. And they're like, well, he's doing something wrong or blah, 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 blah. And, they vote you out.
Well, yeah, and I can see how that, this is the first club I've been in quite a while, and I could see how that could happen because, again, these guys they go plant their food plots. They've, until recently, were able to bait. It's Westervelt and Westervelt banned baiting on all their properties, so we can't bait on that property. So they lost that, and as we'll get to, some of them seemed a little frustrated that I shot this buck. And yeah, I mean, if you go out there and you start having really consistent success, I mean, I could see how they would be like, well, what's he like? He's probably baiting. He's probably doing this. He's probably doing something he's not supposed to. Because I mean, I could see how they could come to that conclusion and be unhappy about it.
Yeah.
And so that's how you get voted out, which has happened to Kevin and some other people that we know.
Oh, Anthony brought it up on.
Yeah, it happened to Anthony.
Yeah, Anthony says it's happened to him, which I don't think he talked about Monday's episode, but we were.
I think he briefly went over it. Maybe.
Yeah, a little bit, but he's like, oh yeah, he's like, it happens all the time. They vote you out. He's like, get to the end of the season next year, they don't have a spot for you because you killed.
You get voted off the island, bro.
You're the only one to kill big deer out there for the year, and they're like, well, we don't want him in here. It's kind of funny. It's like the hunting clubs, like the ideal hunting club, if I had to guess from like a member's perspective, is like a bunch of people that just don't kill anything. And everybody thinks it's like, oh, it's fair game now because nobody can kill anything. Like, but you have one dude having a lot of success. It's like, okay, well, we got to vote him off the island. Like,
Yeah, he's doing something he's not supposed to.
Or he's just too good.
Or he's getting the deer that, we'll get to that.
Yeah,
there's a comment somebody made at the pinout shed where I'm like, so it begins. Yeah. So the drama begins.
Yeah, grown men having hissy fits. It's hilarious.
Yeah, it is what it is. So one of these spots that we prep for gun season, essentially all it is I think I've narrowed down where these bucks are wanting to bed, and I was really confident about it before season, and I was really, really confident about it when I found those rubs, and then I'm 100% sure about it now that Mike went in there and saw those bucks come out of that spot early in the afternoon too. I mean, good hour before dark at least, maybe a little bit more than an hour before dark.
Yeah.
And so that confirmed, I'm like, yes, they're bedding right where I thought they were. And essentially, it's thick pines. It's nothing crazy. It's thinned pines that have a really just unbelievably thick understory, and there's a particular area in there that they like to hang out. And we get a lot of questions about those larger, thick areas that are kind of monotonous, and where do they bed in it? Because they can kind of bed anywhere. And what I found is it's one of two things. It's either they just pick a spot and they like it, and you can find it based on sign, like rubs coming out of a certain area, or there's like some subtle feature in there, just like a little bump or like a logging road that goes through it, or something that's different in there, and they'll gravitate towards that. Well, this is kind of like one of those features like that they gravitate towards, and it's just something. It's an anomaly in there. It's like there's like a road that goes up through it that you can see on the LiDAR if you look at LiDAR of this place, and they kind of hold around that, and so I went to go hunt one of my number one spots, and Mike was with me, and there was 2 different spots that we could go to.
Mm-hmm.
And I was kind of trying to wolf pack the area a little bit. And I was like, Mike, you can either go here or you can go here. And he zigged and he should have zagged, man.
Andrew's the ultimate gar holder. he gar holed poor Mike.
I thought Mike was going to see something where he went.
Mm.
And so I ended up going to the spot I really wanted to go to because I thought it was the better spot. And so I go up in there and
yeah, he should have been on X. He put him on Z.
I mean, I thought I was confident.
I know, I'm giving you crap. I'm just giving you crap.
I was confident in the other spot too.
Me and Mike were talking about this when we were recording Monday's episode over at their place, and I'm like, so Angie Garhold you. He's like, man. He's like me and Sam were giving him crap. He's like, it's all good, but he's like,
oh man,
we're gonna give him so much crap. He's like, Andrew comes out here after killing 2 bucks in Arkansas, and
oh yeah, dude, I gave Mike crap too because I'm like, I put you on the 10-point, you missed him. Like, come on. So, anyways, I'm like, you got to have a couple bad sits now before you get another crack. You can't just go back out there and just kill him.
Yeah,
we got to have realistic. Which, on Mike's very first hunt last year, very first hunt, we were walking to the spot and saw some does.
Yeah,
and he got all set up with the rifle. I'm like, he's about to kill a freaking deer 3 minutes into his first hunt. I'm like, this can't happen. I'm like, I mean, I wanted him to hit the deer, but I'm like, dang, he's gonna have like a warped view of hunting, and he missed. And it's been a little bit of a struggle fest since then. I'm like, okay, good, because I'm kind of glad he's suffering a little bit because it's gonna make it that much better.
Suffer. That's a bad way of saying it. A little bit of adversity he's gonna have to overcome in order to have that success.
Yeah, a little bit.
As Travis Murray says, failure is the seasoning that makes success taste so sweet. And it's
and I've watched him just get more and more and more fired up. Same thing with Sam and Sam's wife Blakely. They've been going a lot, and just being able to take them out there and kind of show them the ropes and help them and be a part of their enthusiasm has been awesome. I mean, it's been one of the highlights of my season for sure. It's just really, really fun getting to go with all them, and they're all like new and fired up, and you can see the excitement growing every time you go. Mike texted me this morning. He's like, dude, I can't stop thinking about it. I'm not getting anything done at work. I'm like, yes, let's go. That's what I'm talking about. So anyways, I'm so excited about it.
Yeah.
So I go to one of my spots that I'm real confident in, and I mean, really, there's not much to it other than I got set up, and it was probably about 4:40 in the afternoon. It gets dark here about 5:15 is the end of legal shooting light, roughly. And about 4:40, I look up and I see a buck that just walked out, and he's like 70 yards from me or so. Again, like kind of through these pines, and I see him, and I see he has antlers, and so like my heart jumps instantly. I'm like, it's him, and I get the gun up, zoom up on him, and he's like a goofy little 5-point. He's right at his ears.
He's a cool buck.
He's a Jacobs cool buck. Kind of goofy, missing a brow tine on one side. His other brow tine's like that big.
Definitely a cool buck.
Yeah, he's a real cool buck. Well, so this is like November 18th when that happened. Okay, so 2 weeks prior, this is before we went to Arkansas. Mike had that Big Ten come in with a bachelor group of 5 bucks. And so I'm like, I wonder if these deer are still bachelored. Like I looked at him, I decided, I'm like, yeah, no, I'm not going to shoot this deer. And he's walking towards me, and out of the corner of the scope, I see just fur in the woods. I'm like, oh, there's another one. This one comes out, and he's a similar buck. I think he might have been a 6. I'm not even sure what he was. But again, immediately saw he's a rack buck, but he's not what I'm interested in at this point.
Yeah.
And so he's coming, and I'm like, okay.
He's a youngin.
He's a youngin. So they're like walking through the woods towards me, and I'm like, okay, like, let's see what else. Because now the heart rate is rising. I'm like, I'm about to kill the Big 10-point. Oh my gosh. And they're feeding for a couple minutes. Now the first buck is walking straight towards me. I mean, he's coming like straight towards me, and I'm like, this joker's about to get right on top of me and freaking bust me. And he's like, I first saw him probably at like 80 yards or so. And by this time, he's already close to like 45 yards. Third buck pops out. Pretty good 8-point, like tempting 8-point. But if I hadn't shot these 2 bucks in Arkansas, I might have shot this 8-point. He's actually very similar to my first buck in Arkansas. He had good mass.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, you put him outside.
Oh yeah, I already put him out. Dang it. So he had really good mass.
Mm-hmm.
He was right there at the ears, and he had good time length. Like, he's a good deer. And I was like,
How many guys on the club you think are going to pass that?
0. Anybody in the club would have shot him, I think. He's coming out, and I'm like, okay, they're getting bigger. Like, each buck is getting bigger. And so he comes out, and he's feeding around. And I mean, they've been in front of me for a minute now.
Mm-hmm.
And now, buck number 1 is 3 feet from the base of my tree. And he's just walking, and he gets to my tree, and he's like, just looks straight at me. And I'm on the gun like this, rested up against the tree. I'm in the saddle, and I'm like looking at him through the corner of my eye like that. And
you had the gun rested up against the tree?
Yeah.
I'm telling you, you have way too short of a bridge on your saddle.
No. Because I took your advice, and I lengthened my bridge a whole bunch. And so now I can move we have a question about this.
Okay.
But I shift my tether, like if this is the middle of the tree, I shift my tether just slightly to the left.
Uh-huh.
And then I can kind of
to
shift
the left or to the right?
To the right. I'm sorry, I don't know what left and right.
Clearly.
And so I shift my hips, and I can grab the tree and rest the gun on top of my hand, and it is like I might as well be shooting off a freaking sled.
Yeah.
It is super solid. So I feel really confident with that. But also, if I have to shoot more to the left and I can't really lean on the tree, I can rest on my bridge like what you were talking about.
Yeah.
So like one of our questions today is about that.
Is it?
Yeah, you showed me how to do that, and it is night and day.
Oh,
it's so
dude, I would rather shoot a rifle out of a saddle longer distance, like 200 plus yards, than out of a climber or especially a lock on.
Yeah,
like it
100%.
is so much more stable. But keep going.
So he's right beneath me. I'm like, crap, he's gonna, and I'm still waiting for more bucks to come out because I got 3 bucks out right now.
Mm-hmm.
And all I can think about is Sam and Mike and where they're hunting.
Mm-hmm.
And like they would have shot any one of these deer. I'm like, dang man, I kind of wish they were up here, because and so I'm still waiting.
Mm-hmm.
Buck number 1 standing 3 feet from me. He's like staring at me, and he's like
the little head bob.
Yeah, doing a little head bob. He's like, what the hell is that thing up there in that tree? And I'm like completely motionless, and he ends up bounding. Okay, so he runs below me and kind of down the hill.
Mm-hmm.
And he didn't blow or anything. He just bounded, got to like 40 yards, and then stopped and stood there looking back up at me. And I'm like, okay, interesting. We'll see about what this does. The other bucks, they look for a minute, and then they just go back to what they're doing. Which what they're doing is just walking around browsing in these pines.
Yeah.
There's a lot of honeysuckle and greenbrier, and they're just eating whatever green stuff they can get their mouth on.
And that's one thing that I think a lot of people don't realize when you go in pines. Now, the pines you're talking about are very different from like old growth pines that's never been thinned, or like younger pines that's never been thinned, where it's nothing but pine straw on the ground, nothing's growing up underneath. When you have like this understory growing up underneath pines, it looks really, really thick. But there's all this greenery that they're browsing on, like you said, like honeysuckle, greenbrier. There's a bunch of other plants and forbs that are growing up, and they're just picking on that stuff. And a lot of people don't realize that until you actually go out there and witness it, because you look at like, oh man, there's nothing for a deer to eat, and probably like a lot of dudes in the club, like, man, there's nothing for a deer to eat.
Yeah.
But it's all food. Like everything underneath those trees is food.
Yeah, 100%. And so when I hunted out there yesterday, even then I saw 6 does, which is a lot for this hunting club.
Mm-hmm.
And especially all of them, but especially the first one, was just walking up and down through the woods, literally like a lawnmower. Like she would come towards me, and then she'd turn around and go away. And I mean, she was just walking around all over the place, just eating stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, so yeah, it's like a big food plot, which is just another reason why they don't have to go out into food plots.
Yeah.
Why would they go out in a food plot?
To eat one thing.
To eat, yeah. When they're browsing, they're eating honeysuckle, greenbrier, woody browse, whatever else they got. I don't even know what all they're eating.
Yeah.
But it's like a huge, and like a deer is not really like a grazing species anyway. They're a browsing species. So
a bunch of different species they'll feed on.
Yeah. And they got everything within, their reach right there. They stand there, they can eat 7 different plants, as opposed to if they go out in a food plot. I'm not saying they don't go in food plots. Obviously they do. But I think that the native browse is even better than the food plots, especially when you're planting just like rye or like some kind of like oats or something. I don't know. I don't even know what they plant out there, to be honest with you. But it just seems like it's what deer want. So these bucks are walking around in the woods. They're eating all kinds of stuff, watching them. And then buck number 4 pops out. Buck number 4 is my number 3 buck, the big 6. So he's a buck that if people go back in the summer and listen to when we were going over our trail camera stuff, he's a good deer for sure. He's a really good deer. And I was, of course, more interested in the 10-point, but you were really interested in that 6-point. You're like, give me that big 6, man. I actually got a message when I posted him on my Instagram page. Someone was like, oh, Jacob's going to be jealous, even though it's your club. I'm like, yeah, Jacob had a thing for this big 6-point.
Yeah.
You like a big 6?
Yeah, I like a big 6. It's like, yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to make an analogy, but I'm not going to make that analogy. But anyway, yeah. Yeah, no, it's cool. I mean, it's because a 6-point, especially for a mature deer, there's some areas I feel like it's more common than others, but it's really not that common to get just a clean 6 as a mature deer. And that deer was that. I mean, that deer's 4.5 years old. You could tell just from the trail cam videos that we had this summer with him.
Yeah.
And just an awesome buck. And I'm like, dude, that deer is cool as crap, man.
Yeah. Yeah, he was a really good looking deer. And I think I said it would be kind of a game time decision for me whether or not I shoot him. Like I needed to see him in person because it also, again, it depended on how my season was going. And so he came out, and I'm like looking at him through the scope, and at first I'm like, oh, it's that big 6-point, and I don't know, I was like, oh, the 10's gonna come out, that I kind of overlooked him. And I was looking at him in the scope, looking at him, and he like looked in my direction, so I got like a good frontal view. I'm like, oh dang, like he's a nice deer, like a really nice deer. And so I was like, oh, I want to shoot him. I think I want to shoot him, but I didn't know if that Big 10 would be with him. So Mike did say that when he saw the Big 10, he had a 6-point, like a big 6 with him. There might be more than one that lives out there, but he said it was an 8-point. A big 6, and 2 spikes that were with him. And so I'm looking at all these bucks in front of me. I'm like, is this the same bachelor group like that deer was with? And basically, I let them sit out there, and they were just browsing, So I just let them sit in front of me for as long as I could because I'm like, I need to make absolutely sure that this Big 10 is not with them. And I'll also add that when each of these bucks came out in the road, they kept looking behind them. So I kind of knew that there was more deer coming. So like buck number 1 came out, he turns and he's like looking. I'm like, okay, more coming. Buck number 2, he's looking. Buck number 3, he looked. That big 6 came out, he never looked behind him. And so I kind of held on to hope. I'm like, come on. Like, look behind you, give me something. And I don't know exactly how long they were in front of me because I didn't look at my watch or anything. But it was quite a while. I mean, they were out there. I watched them for, I'm going to guess, probably about 10 minutes because shooting light was kind of starting to fade. And I was like, you know what? I had like one really good lane, and I was like, if that 6-point, if he starts stepping out, I've already been watching him for a while at this point, and I'm like, okay, I don't think there's any more deer with him. If that 6-point goes to step out of this lane, or if I run out of shooting light, I'm gonna kill him. So I watch him for a couple more minutes, and sure enough, he gets to the edge of my lane, and he's just about to walk out, and I was like, I'm getting him. I'm going to get him. So I flipped the safety off. And
how much time has gone by since he first came out until you decided to pull the trigger?
Somewhere between 10 and 15 minutes. So that's what I'm saying, too. Like, these deer are feeding in those pines. They are eating all the stuff because he didn't move very far. I mean, he'd moved like 30 yards in that entire 10 or 15 minute time span, and that's the power of all the browse in these pines. I think is it's holding those deer. So I was never in a rush at all. And
also to preface this, this is an area of Alabama. These deer don't rut until like January.
Yeah,
that's why they're still batched up. Because there's probably some people listening like, man, it's November 18th when this happens, and they're batched up like, what's going on? But again, this place it's not even pre-rut right now. Like, they're not even laying down really any kind of scraping activity. Maybe hitting some looking branches a little bit, but they're all still together for the most part.
Yeah. And so another thing I was wondering too is, according to guys I've talked to in the club and other guys who hunt around there, I have heard that around Christmas it kind of starts getting good. Christmas to New Year's is when the rut kind of starts going off. So we're starting to get close to where they should be breaking up. And so I was like, I wonder, that 10-point, obviously he's bigger. I think he's more mature than any other deer out there. I'm like, I wonder if he just has higher testosterone and maybe he peeled off earlier, because I'm pretty confident he was with this 6-point all summer.
Yeah.
Every time I got him on video or on camera, he was with this 6-point.
Yep.
So I'm like, maybe he split off. He did his thing early. Testosterone's rising.
Mm-hmm.
And anyways, so that 6 point, I determined that there's no more bucks with him. He starts stepping out of my lane and slight quartering 2-shot, put it right on that front shoulder, let her eat. And so I shoot, and he kind of does his little hunch thing. They all run off, and I hear a crash, but it's not like a just insane like like running through the woods. It was just like I mean like a one little crash. I'm like, got him. 100% got him. And then Sam texts in the group because they're hunting pretty close to me. He's like, that had to be you. I was like, yes, it was.
My shots a doe, boys.
No. So I get down out of the tree, rappel out.
By the way, how you like climbing after doing the one stick for a bit?
Now that I'm up to probably like 10 climbs or so with that one stick, I'm sold 100%. It is so light. It is so quiet. Even on pine trees, we had a question about that a couple weeks ago. Even on pine trees, there's no comparison how much more silent you are than you are with a climber. No comparison. And then rappelling out, super easy, super fun. It's just, dude, I'm so glad I started doing it. It is awesome. So I rappel down out of the tree, and I walk over to where I thought this buck was standing. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. I can't find tracks, can't find hair, can't find blood. It's extremely thick in there, and I find where there's a couple of little pine saplings that had limbs broken. And I'm like, okay, he must have went crashing through this stuff. And I knew the rough direction of where he went, and without going, down the rabbit hole too much, I freaking grid searched. I looked everywhere, through all this stuff, going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Could not find any blood, could not find any hair. I'm like, I think I freaking missed this deer. And dude, I was like, I was cussing up a storm. I was walking around. I was angry because I'm like, I can already hear Jacob on the podcast like giving me crap for this. He's like, oh, we gotta get you in the range. We gotta get over your little. Blah, blah. So, I'm so.
You're so
mad.
right too. I would have given you
so
much crap.
I was so freaking mad, dude. I was like, how did I miss that? He was like 60 yards, standing still, rock solid rest.
Yeah.
Like everything was perfect. I'm just like, you idiot, dude. I was so mad at myself. So, the club president calls me. There's a bunch of people out there hunting. He's already back at the pinout shed. They all get back pretty quick because they hunt.
Dude, they don't like using headlamps or headlights.
Dude, they're back at that pinout shed like that after dark. And so he calls me. I mean, it had just gotten dark too. I mean, it was still. I didn't use a flashlight getting down or walking over there. I mean, that's how early, or how quick I was able to get down and go. And he's like, hey, are you still out here? Like, you're still pinned out or whatever? I was like, yeah, I'm over here. I'm looking. I just shot at a buck, but I don't think I hit him. And he's like, okay, well, do you want me to come help? And I was like, no, I got it. I don't think I got him. I might have to come back out in the morning just to be sure when I have better light. And he's like, okay, man, well, let me know. And so we got off the phone. Sam and Mike are on their way up to come and help me look with their flashlights.
See, he wanted to know where the deer was. He said, you want me to come out and help you? Nah, man.
I said, no, it's all right.
Nah.
And so I'm looking around, can't find anything. And basically, I'm like, okay, I've lost all hope. I'm mad at myself. I called Tiffany. I'm like, I missed a buck. I was upset. I'm like, I'm just gonna do one more like big loop. Like basically the direction he ran, I'm like kind of cutting across the direction he ran at different distances, trying to get blood. Because I'm shooting that Hornady Precision Hunter, the ELDX, and every deer I've shot with those, it has been a bloodbath. I mean, those are really good bullets. Very gruesome bullets to shoot. I mean, you get a excellent blood trail. And like I shot a deer, I guess it was like 4 years ago now. There's a pine tree behind this buck that I shot.
Oh yeah.
And this pine tree was 11 yards behind where he was, and there was pieces of lung stuck to the pine tree.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just devastating.
But also, you shot that deer broadside at like.
So that's where I'm getting to. So this one was slightly. This is what happened. So I do one last loop, and I'm walking, and I look up, and there's the deer. There he is. And he's like burrowed. I'll put a picture on the YouTube video. He's like burrowed into the brush. and his head's up. He looks like he's bedded and alive, and so it freaked me out. Like I racked one when I was walking up to him, because I'm like, I didn't know if he was about to get up and run off. And I get up there, and he's dead. You know, just sitting weird. Like what I heard was he basically crashed into a bunch of vines, and the vines just caught him.
Yeah.
And he died on his feet. And I start trying to backtrack him. Absolutely no blood whatsoever. Period. No blood trail. And I'm like, man, what happened? Like, where did I hit this thing? And Sam and everybody, Sam, Mike, and Blakely get out there, and we drag him out of the little vine hellhole that he was in. And I flip him over and look at him, and I hit him, I mean, right where I was aiming, right on that front shoulder. But what I think happened is, and I found the bullet and everything. I hit the bone.
You found the bullet?
Yeah, I got the bullet.
Oh, cool.
So I hit the bone. You know that the scapula has that little ridge on it? So I center punched that sucker right on that ridge. So it had to go through a decent bit of bone. And, of course, the entry hole is the size of the bullet.
Yeah.
And the bullet was stuck in the offside fur, like on his hide on the opposite side. So no exit, absolutely no blood whatsoever, period. But he was dead. He died on his feet. He was dead in like 2 seconds, literally.
How far did he go?
He went about 45 yards.
Yeah.
And just piled up into that stuff. But it was so thick, it was so hard to find him, he was just... I just got lucky and saw him that night. I'm glad I didn't leave him out there overnight because we got so many coyotes out there. And like I said, he died on his feet. So yeah, I mean, I texted Sam and everyone. I was like, I got him, because they all thought I missed him too. At this point, everyone's depressed. So I was like, I was about to call Sam and Mike and be like, when I shot, did it sound like I hit him? Which, you want to explain that about like a gunshot? You can tell when someone hits a deer.
Yeah, but you have to. I mean, with them being newer hunters, I don't know if they would know what that sounds like. But yeah, when you hear a gunshot, I mean, it can be like half a mile away, and you can tell if they hit it, because you hear the boom.
Yep.
And it's like that poo, that first sound is like the bullet coming out, and then like the bullet impacting. And if you don't hit anything solid, it just sounds like a loud crack. It's like pa.
Yeah, like if you're at a gun range or you're near a gun range, like off through the woods. And what people shoot, like the sound it makes when people are shooting there.
Yeah.
It's just, the report of the rifle.
It's just
loud crack.
Loud crack, yeah. There's no thud of the bullet hitting. But, like, if you're hunting, and you can hear it easily as well with a muzzler. Like, got a muzzler, because it's like delayed. Yeah, it's like, boom, boom. And you're like, okay, yeah, definitely hit it.
Yeah.
And a lot of times if you're shooting one, especially, like, if he's within, like, 150 yards, if you shoot a deer, a lot of times, if you're listening, a lot of times, and if you're like focused and not like blacked out, as in like too much in the kill mode, you can hear it yourself. Like, because I've heard it many a times, like just with my own ears. Like when I was shot, like, oh yeah, I hit him good. Like I didn't even have to see where the bullet hit. I definitely hit him good. Boom. And so, anyways, because like when we were in Arkansas, like that's how we could tell. Like, oh, that guy shot one. He hit one. Oh, that dude definitely missed.
Yeah.
Like, you just hear a loud crack. But anyway, so yeah, just the report of the rifle, and you can hear that bullet make impact at a pretty good distance. I mean, I've easily a half a mile you can hear it. Maybe if it's quiet and like there's no cloud cover or anything like that, and the sound can carry, you can hear it a little bit further than that far, in my opinion. But
yeah, definitely. Yeah, so like drug him out, took a look at him. He's a really good buck, dude. He's a really good deer. So I'm super happy with him. I'm glad I got him. So now I got to be a little bit more picky, because I got 2 more buck tags here in Alabama, and we got some really good hunts coming up that I'm gonna have to have like way higher standards than I normally do. Like I'm only at the club, that 8-point that I'm talking about. Again, he would be kind of a game time decision. Seeing him, I mean, he's a really good deer, so he'd be a very
not the one that you saw, or the other one on camera.
No. There's a different one on camera, different one than what I saw. The one I saw is like pretty young. I don't want to shoot him. And he's not big enough this year to like really get me going. So I'm not going to shoot that. But there's a different one I got on camera who is a really nice deer that I would probably burn a tag on. But I really want to kill that 10-point, man. I really think we can kill him this year. Might be me, might be Mike, might be my buddy Cody, who's also hunting him. But I think that 10-point's going to get killed this year by somebody. He's just too patternable, I think.
Yep.
So anyways, got the deer out, and Mike and Sam and Blakely were at the
Here comes the drama, guys.
they're at the pinout board, and everybody's hanging out there, after dark, and there's like a couple guys there, and there's really everybody in the club is very cool. Like I don't want to make it sound like everyone's like shady or whatever. There is one guy in particular who he's an interesting character.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I don't know much about him. I'm just like, hey, I need to watch out for that guy.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, Mike said, because I'd already told Trevor I shot at a buck, and Mike was there, and they were like,
Man,
yeah, do you
put your phone on Do Not Disturb?
Oh, it's the computer that made the sound. Anyways, dang, I lost my train of thought. You interrupted me.
Getting back.
All right, got back there, and they were like, "Hey, Andrew said he shot at a buck.
Mm-hmm.
What was it?" And Mike was like, "I think it was like just a really big 6-point." And one of those guys said something under his breath, like, "Yeah, I worked hard for him," or something like that. It was the guy that I'm like, I gotta watch out for that guy. He made some kind of comment under his breath, like that, and I was like, okay, gotcha, because he hunts the same area of the club. Nobody else really hunts this part of the club, but they do, and I think they do their own stuff down there. I think they like kind of go put in their own little hidey hole food plot type things. And I think that he thinks I was hunting one of those, which is fine. He can think that. And if he asked me, I might not even deny it. I wasn't, but, I don't want him to know where I was.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? So, anyways, yeah, he made some little comment. So, there might be a little drama brewing there. And this is the same guy who, when I shot that doe on opening day, ran into him at the pinout board. And I was like, yeah, I got a doe this morning. Did you see anything? And he seemed upset that I shot a doe. And he was just talking about how, like, our deer are hurting or, whatever. And he's like, that's going to be your only one, right? And I'm like, maybe. It depends on if I feel like shooting another one. Yeah, like, I'm not going to sit here and let a grown man talk to me like that.
Well, there's no limit on how many y'all can kill out there. Like, do y'all have it set like is it 3 does or something like that on the club? Or
I don't think so.
Yeah. Because I bring it up because some hunting clubs will set like, if there's enough members and they're killing enough does, like, hey, you get 3 doe tags per membership. And, in the state of Alabama, you can kill a doe a day the whole season, unless you're in like a couple different parts of the state on some public land where they have like, you can't kill a doe outside like a certain window of time.
Yeah.
But some clubs, especially if they have like maybe a biologist or something there, they'll be like, hey, you shoot, 4 per membership, 5 per membership, or some like you got so many deer, y'all need to kill 70 does this year.
Yeah, definitely. And just to give a little bit further backstory, this is the same guy who on the work day, he was talking about finding this trail camera. He's like, yeah, I didn't know whose camera this was. I took it off the tree. I was messing with it, looking at this or that. And he's describing where this camera was. I'm like, that was my camera. And he's like, oh, well, I thought it was mine. I didn't know if I'd left one over there. I'm like, yeah, okay. Got it. And that's what kind of tipped me off because I'm cool with everybody, man. Like, I don't care. But when you like are openly talking about messing with somebody else's camera and this and that, it's a little awkward, getting a little weird. So, anyways, yeah, we'll see what happens there with that. I'm fully intending on killing another buck out there. So I don't know. I don't think I'm gonna get like voted out or anything, like for real. Like we're kind of joking about that. I don't think I will, but we'll see.
Voted off the island. And the funny thing is, Andrew gets kicked out. I'm taking his membership. They don't know me. Then Andrew's gonna come as a guest, and the guys will be like, "What the hell are you doing back?"
Yeah, for real. Well, I gotta I'm really cool with everybody in the club, and like our club president, really, really nice guy. Really like him. There's just that one guy who's like, I don't know, he might cause a little bit of drama, especially now that I know that he just like messes with people's cameras out in the woods. So that's interesting.
Yeah, but also this is a huge advantage. Talking about kind of hunting incognito. A huge advantage of hunting mobile and even not even using a climber, because a climber, if you use a climbing tree stand, if you climb a tree a couple times, you can see on that tree if a climber's been
100%.
I mean, really, if you climb it one time, you can look at that tree and be like, okay, there's been a climber up in that tree.
Yeah.
If you're using a saddle or using like lock-on sticks or whatever, and you're taking out every time you hunt, people don't know where you've been. They can't look up in the tree unless you were cutting limbs and stuff. They can't tell that someone climbed that tree.
That is another factor that matters to me, and that's another thing with the one sticking. Not that I don't think anybody would find these trees just because of how thick those pines are, but if they did, I don't. You're exactly right. I don't want other people seeing exactly where I'm hunting.
Yeah.
Just because you work hard for those spots.
Well, it's another tip just for listeners that are in hunting clubs. Like if you're not currently using some kind of like mobile hunting system. Like again, we use saddles, but if you're not using a lock on and sticks or a saddle and sticks or something like that, do so. And again, get in the habit of like when you hunt, you carry everything with you on your backpack. You hang it when you hunt. When you're done hunting, you pull everything out, so there's no evidence you've been there. So Jim Bob comes walk through the woods, he can't look at that tree and be like, oh well, someone's hunted that tree before. I wonder who that was. Or maybe it's they find evidence like, oh man, I'm going to come hunt this spot now. So that's just a huge advantage I feel like, especially in a club, is like hunting like that. Just because I feel like you can, unless someone physically sees you, they don't know exactly where you've been because they can't tell the tree you climb because you're not leaving a stand hung up the whole time.
Yeah, and I was explaining it to Sam because Sam, I don't think he's ever been in a hunting club or anything either. And I grew up in hunting clubs. So, like, we hunted public land when I was a kid, but we were first and foremost in hunting clubs. And then I got into public land as a teenager. Growing up as a kid, time and time again, there was club drama where someone got a big deer on camera, they said too much at the pinout board, and someone goes in there and shoots it. Now, that's perfectly fine that person went in there and shot it. But there's like an unspoken code of ethics where it's kind of on both of you. It's like, hey, don't go telling everybody exactly where this huge buck is because they might go in there and shoot it.
Yeah,
and especially it creates an awkward situation because it's like, okay, let's say that I've already been scouting an area. I haven't really said much about it. And then you come to the clubhouse and you're kind of running your mouth about how you got this huge buck on camera over by so-and-so. And it's already an area that I'm familiar with and I've been hunting. So now if I go in there and kill that buck, you're going to be mad at me because you're going to think that I went in there because of what you said.
Yeah.
So, or maybe I just went in there and killed it because you said too much.
Yeah.
Like it creates awkward situations. So it's like everyone just kind of hold your cards close.
Be like a good turkey hunter. Good turkey hunter doesn't say anything. So you hear anything? Nah, man. You kill any birds? Nah, and you drop the tailgate and there's a turkey laying there in the back of the tailgate.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's a dance, bro. You gotta know when to not pry. I mean, it's fine to be like, hey, did you see anything today? And just have normal conversation, but don't pry.
Yeah.
Don't say too much. Everyone just chill. Just calm down a little bit.
Yeah, do your own thing.
Yeah, everyone do your own thing. Because, man, it just happened. There was one club when I was a kid, there was like a big rift in the club because that exact thing happened. Someone got like a big, like huge, thick 9-point on camera. They were talking about where it was, and they were like, I can't even remember. It was something like they couldn't hunt it that next weekend. They're like, man, I think I could really kill that deer. And one of the other guys who was at the clubhouse, who he was talking to, went in there when the weekend that he said he couldn't be there and killed it. And they got a big fight about it, and it was a bunch of club drama. And I've just, like, people who haven't been in hunting clubs in the past, or maybe they're in an area where hunting clubs aren't as big of a thing. It sounds weird to people, but that stuff does happen. It's just, that stuff happens.
Yeah.
And there's a little bit of club drama, and it is what it is. So you just got to navigate it the best you can. And that's kind of my rule of thumb is like, I'm not going to go and run my mouth about what I'm seeing outside of, if someone asks me like, hey, did you see anything? I'll be like, yeah, I saw a couple deer today. But if I see the big 10-point walking through whatever part of the property, I might be like, dude, I saw that big 10 cross blah, blah, blah. Go across that food plot.
Unless you now the other way, you intentionally say that, but in a completely different area. And you're like, hey, especially if you're hunting up, like, you want a wolf pack, but you don't have anybody else go out there with you. Like, man, I saw a big deer, man. He was, way over here on this side.
Food plot over by the highway?
Yeah. I'd be like, and the next thing you got 3 guys hunting over there intentionally, like, way upwind of where this deer is coming through anyways. Yeah. And then they bump into you. So, there's different ways to go about doing it.
Yeah, definitely. So off to a hot start.
Yeah,
for sure this year. Got 2 more buck tags to fill.
Yeah, see, I killed one in Alabama. I was high on the hog, feeling great before we go to Arkansas. I'm like, man, I'm going to kill 2 bucks in Arkansas. Didn't kill a single deer in Arkansas.
Right.
But you'll hear more about that on Monday. But and I'm like, okay, well, and Mike was telling me, he said, man, Michael Pike, he was like, man, you up on Andrew. Andrew's going to have to catch up. And literally in 6 days,
Andrew caught up.
You 3-upped me, freaking, killed 3 bucks in 6 days. And I'm like, holy crap, dude. And I'm like, okay.
It's been a good, hey, I'll tell you what, we're going to have to cover this on a different outro, maybe next week's. But I just want to touch on it briefly here before we do the Q&A. But my whole thing this year, I think this is why I've been having such a good year. Because it really started in Georgia. Even though I only got to hunt like twice in Georgia, I had deer in bow range both times. And then I didn't hunt again until opening day of Alabama. Killed one. And then after I've been on deer every single hunt
Mm-hmm.
this entire season, minus maybe one or two. But I don't think I've been in the stand and not seen a deer this season so far.
Mm-hmm.
And this has been a year where I've hunted significantly less than usual,
Mm-hmm.
but my percentages are going way up.
Yeah.
I'm being really efficient, and I think part of it is before I went into this season, I wanted, which people probably heard this kind of come through in our discussions. I just wanted to not overthink stuff. I
Mm-hmm.
just wanted to go out there and not give myself too many options, not overthink what I'm doing, and just be really like decisive and intentional about what I'm doing. Because I feel like, especially over these last couple of years, I'm like I feel like I know what to do, but I'm like, oh, I'm thinking myself out of deer. I'm making it more complicated than it should be, and so I've been really conscious about not doing that this season. And I think that's one of the reasons. Now I could go into a complete struggle fest for the rest of the year. I don't know, but so far it's working really, really good.
Yeah.
And we'll have to touch on that more on a later, like maybe next week's outro. But anyways, we got some Q&As
Yeah.
to get to. So
Yep. So appreciate everybody that's been submitting Q&As. Again, you can do it. There's a link down in the show notes of the podcast, also in the YouTube channel as well. On this episode, you can go down to the description down below, and there's a link on there for listener Q&As. And again, it allows you guys to be able to write in your questions. We can answer them on the podcast. If we don't have the answer, we'll try to get a past guest to be able to answer some of those. So yeah, we've had a lot of really good ones come in. Plus, we've had a lot of great listener success stories. Y'all been hammering the bucks, hammering the deer so far this season, especially in November. So love seeing those listener success stories come in. And by the way, again, you can submit those again down the show notes, down the show description below on both YouTube and on the audio version of the podcast. There's a link in there where if you kill a deer, it can be a buck, it can be a doe, it can be your first buck, it doesn't matter. There's no criteria for it. But if you kind of implement something that you kind of heard about the show or have a cool story you want to tell, you can go right in, submit some photos, and we'll share that with the audience. So those have been awesome coming through.
all right, this one is from Kevin Akins, I think is how you say your last name. Sorry, Kevin. From Georgia. He said, in my area of Georgia, the rut occurs November 3rd through November 9th. How long do bucks act, quote unquote, rut-like? I mean, I know it doesn't end exactly on the 9th, but these bucks are still full of testosterone. When do their testosterone levels level out again, and they move back to regular patterns, a week, a day, etc.? I'm kind of curious about the dates of that rut. Like, where are you getting those hard dates? Like, is that something the state published? Like, peak rut dates are November 3rd through 9th? Because a lot of times, Alabama puts out a rut map like that, where it'll say like, okay, the peak rut for this day or this area is like December, like 10th through the 15th or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you have to look at how they're defining that because the rut's a bell curve.
Mm-hmm.
So the upswing of the bell curve is really good. The very top of the bell curve is not that great, and the downswing of the bell curve is really good.
What do you mean by really good and not great?
So that bell curve would be your does coming into heat, does coming into estrus and becoming receptive. So at the beginning, you don't have that many, and that's really good in our experience. Really good
Because
the bucks only have a few options. Let's say that there's 30 does and 2 of them are in heat. Well, now all of a sudden, every single buck in there's got to compete for those 2 does, and they're going to be running and fighting and going crazy. Now, when you get to the top of that bell curve, and all of a sudden, 23 of the 30 does are in heat, those bucks they're not having to look as hard. They're going to be with the does, and so that's what we experienced in Arkansas, we think. So I bring that up to say that a lot of times when the states put out that rut map, they're talking about peak breeding. So like if it which I don't know if this is the case, but just as an example for the listeners, if you're saying it's November 3rd through the 9th, if they're saying peak breeding is November 3rd through the 9th, then I want to be hunting from like October 25th to November 3rd and, on the backswing of that too, like around like November 10th through the 15th.
mm-hmm.
That's when I'd typically have the best luck. But any of that can be good. And like what I like to do personally is basically if you take your peak breeding dates, again, let's say it's like November 8th and 9th are your peak breeding dates. I'll take 14 days on both sides of that, and all that's going to be good.
Mm-hmm.
And potentially even longer than that as well.
So to answer his question, though, how long will they kind of stay in a rut activity? Like you said, the back side of the bell curve, so that's the peak date to say, again, the 3rd through the 9th is the highest spot. As it starts sloping down, there's still going to be other does coming to heat, but it's a lot less does. So you're going to have a lot more competition, a lot more buck movement because they have to travel further to find those deer. But So, all the way through, pretty much when the time this podcast comes out, it's still going to be really good. But also, if you're in an area with fairly high deer numbers, there are people, there are hunters and biologists. Some agree that there's a secondary rut where not all the does get bred, and it's the ones that some of them come back in the heat and they try to get bred again.
28 days later.
And then other people say absolutely that's not the case. I think in areas with very high deer numbers, where you have very skewed deer numbers, where you have way less bucks to as many does, which places that think about, like when we had Mark. Haslam on from South Carolina. He's talking about it's like 50 to 60 deer per square mile. It's a lot of does, a lot more does than bucks. In an area like that, you're going to have some kind of secondary rut. Like, not all those does are going to be able to be bred by all those bucks, or by the limited amount of bucks. So, you start talking about going into late November, early December, you're probably going to see, if you're in an area with high deer numbers, you're probably going to see some more rutting activity. Bucks chasing does, bucks really cruising, bucks being very responsive to calling. It kind of goes back to past guest Richard Fott. He's been on the episode, I think it's episode 390, Calling Deer the Right Way. He talked about he loves calling that pre-rut time period, and then that later part of the rut into like a post-rut, secondary rut time frame, and that's when those deer are most responsive, because those bucks are even if they all the does get bred, the bucks are still looking for does.
Yes.
Even if they've all been bred, they're still going to be looking for does. So in that case, locating yourself in and around doe bedding, but also implementing calling, especially as we're getting later into November, implementing more grunting, implementing rattling, all that kind of stuff, and setting up in spots that bucks are already using based off how you know that property. You probably will have some kind of success implementing that and doing that. And again, like Richard's talking about, like that, and then also I want to say it might be Clifton Denny, or there's another gentleman we've talked to about calling that really likes that post-rut or like later part of the rut, going to the secondary rut time period for calling.
Yeah.
Like the bucks seem to be way more responsive because, again, especially the mature bucks that have really high testosterone, they're still looking for those next couple does to come in, or even yearling does, fawns from that year that are now able to be bred, which again happens typically after the major part of the rut. They're still looking for those deer, and they could be extremely callable at that time of the year.
Yeah.
So don't lose all hope. If you're in one of these states that, again, has that more traditional November rut, you can still find rutting activity after the fact. And also go back to episode we did earlier this fall with Drew Atkinson from Arkansas, talking about scraping, or like scrape activity. One of his two best times to kill bucks on scrapes is super early in the season, September, early October, mid-October. And then they rut there late October into November in his part of Arkansas. And then he loves hunting scrapes with a bow going into December and early January, hopefully before, bucks shed their antlers. And because they're still checking, they're still curious. And also he talked about they're extremely, they respond very well, at least in his area, if you implement doe estrus urine in one of these scrapes that these bucks are already have been using, because it's acting like there's another doe coming into heat, and then that buck's coming in that area trying to look for that doe, and give you an opportunity to hopefully be able to kill that deer.
Yeah, 100%. Definitely agree. Dude, 2 podcasts in a row, you wore the same freaking thing as me. You're wearing the...
It's the Southern Outdoorsman uniform.
Golly, dude. Can't have nothing. It looks weird. Should have changed. Hey, by the way, this hoodie right here, this is that Furnace hoodie.
Yeah, First Light. Yeah.
Give them a little bit of love. You can get 50% off on their Black Friday sale right now. But this thing right here, so I got this one, and I got the camo one for hunting. So this is a game changer. I'm just bringing this up as like a tip to everyone, because I'm sure there's a lot of people out there like me. I've had to ask Ford from First Light literally like 4 different times for net gaiters, because I immediately lose them. And I gotta have a net gaiter when it's like really cold. I gotta have a net gaiter.
Yeah.
And I have literally lost 4 of them in a row, and I feel stupid having to be like, "Hey man, can I get another net gaiter?" And this one's got these little silent snaps on your neck, and so it kind of like right here you can just button that sucker up, and it's like a hoodie, and it acts as a net gaiter. And I've been using it since we had these cold fronts. It is awesome.
Yeah.
So now I don't have to. I can't lose this. I
Yeah,
mean, I might lose this hoodie, but
well,
I'm a lot less likely to lose this hoodie than I am a net
Well,
gator.
yeah, definitely shout out because First Light has all their stuff on sale. All the whitetail gear is up to 40% off, but they have
Up
other
to 50% off, right?
40% off, and then they have other gear up to 50% off. Some more of the base layers. They don't necessarily classify under the whitetail lineup, but a ton of different pieces, especially like the Solitude kit. I think is 40% off right now.
Yeah.
Which is insane because that's like, especially as we start getting these colder days.
Windproof.
Windproof. Bibs and jacket. It's awesome, but the furnace hoodie. This is the one I wear like every day, and then I have like one I actually will hunt in.
Yeah, me too.
But yeah, they're super.
Yeah, they're awesome. Yeah, that's kind of the downside of like we get like a lot of T-shirts from our partners and stuff like First Light and Onyx and all these people, and it's awesome because I love T-shirts. But it's also kind of sucks because they send us the same stuff. So like all the freaking time we show up somewhere and we're wearing the exact same thing, I'm like, like one of us has to go change.
I'll just go shirtless. I'll pull a Bert Kreischer and just go shirtless in the podcast.
All right, next question. So saddle for rifle hunts. This one, it didn't say like the name or anything, but I remember the question, and I just have to go dig it back up. But basically, he was asking, he feels like saddle hunting is more of like a bow hunting thing, and he's not super confident rifle hunting out of it. So, so rifle hunting in a saddle. So I had this concern last year because like I liked bow hunting out of it more. Wasn't super confident just because of how like you got to get your saddle to be comfortable for you, and there's a lot of different ways you can do that, especially if you have an adjustable bridge, and so you can like set your tether height. And basically, what I was doing is I was setting my tether a little bit lower, and I was having my bridge a little bit shorter, and it was comfortable, especially because I'm more of a leaner than a sitter. So it was comfortable for me, but just because of how the ropes are like right there in your face, it was hard for me to get a really good rest on the tree. And so then you told me how you do it, which is essentially you're setting your tether higher and you have a longer bridge, and I guess it gets you away from the tree a little bit more, and it lets you, like in my case the other day, you can kind of shift your weight a little bit and you can grab the tree and like rest like that, which is extremely solid. I'm very confident shooting a long distance that way. Or you can even rest on the bridge itself, which is I think what you like to do.
Yeah, that's all it is. No, and see, I never adjust the tether height, so it's always when I stand on my platform, it's always like eye level with me. But during the gun hunt specifically, I will, lengthen that bridge up, not all the way, but I'll have like on my Phantom saddle, I'll lengthen it and I'll have like 4 to 5 inches of tag in left. And the way I do it, it is so rock solid. Like the only hard part about hunting out of a saddle, and this is the same thing if you're in a lock on or a climber. I mean, a climber, I guess you can kind of grab a tree or stuff, but like if a deer, the hardest shot with a rifle, and the same thing with a bow. I mean, you got to move around and spin around a little bit. But it's like if that deer is not even directly behind you is not bad. But if it's like if you're
4 and 5 o'clock,
if you're a right-handed shooter, if it's like between 3 o'clock, 4 and 5 o'clock is like your hardest position to try to get spun around and get a stable shot.
Yeah,
especially at a distance. Now, if it's like under 100 yards, I feel comfortable personally just because of shooting freehanding a shot in a situation like that. But no, so I run my tether a little bit longer, and I have that tether sits, again, this is for you two people out there, that tether sits almost like eye level with me when I'm kind of leaning back, and I'll take and we're going to do a video on this. Again, I'm a right-handed shooter, so my left hand is my support arm that holds the forend of a rifle. I will tuck my elbow like just inside that bridge, so the bridge will come just on the outside of my elbow, and then I lay my forearm down over the bridge. So the bridge goes underneath or around my elbow and then sits underneath my left forearm. And, like, you can, like, push out into it. And, dude, it is rock solid.
Yeah.
Like, it is. I never use the tree because I'm always leaning far enough away from the tree. I never use the tree. And then also, if you need even more stability, you can drop. If you use knee pads, you don't have to have knee pads. But if you have knee pads, you can drop. Like, I'll drop. If like the deer is off my left side, I'll drop my right knee into the tree and do the same thing where my elbow is just inside the bridge, my left forearm is just on top of the bridge, pressing down top of the bridge, and then I'll tuck that right knee into the tree, and then I'm talking rock solid. And see, I love shooting the weak side to the tree because the weak side, that's for a strong side, so that's off the left side of the tree as a right-handed shooter, be opposite if you're a left-handed shooter. And I can shoot like that all the way to probably about 10 o'clock. If it gets to 9 o'clock, all I do is just slightly move on my platform a little bit to the right and do the same thing.
Yeah.
And I can do that all the way back to about 7 o'clock position. If it's on the weak side, if it's on the right-hand side of the tree as a right-handed shooter, it is super easy. Instead of, again, having my arm tucked like I do on my left side, I'll bring my arm over and the gun over, and all I'm doing is sitting my left forearm on the right-hand side of the bridge, pressing down to the bridge. And I can shoot that really comfortable from, 12 o'clock position all the way over to the probably 2 o'clock position.
Yeah.
When you start getting to 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock, you just have to shift over to the left side of your platform so you can do the exact same movement to the, be able to shoot off your right-hand shoulder.
Yeah.
But it's very, very easy. It's extremely sturdy. I mean, like I've shot deer. The first I've shot and killed a deer out of the saddle was like 220 yards, one shot done. Like no problem asked. It's just you've got to like that bridge is what you're using to support it. Like you can lean up against the tree, but my thing is I feel more comfortable if I'm like kind of standing upright or maybe like leaned over a little bit and just have all my weight from that gun pressed into that bridge, and it's rock solid.
Yeah, that makes sense. I haven't tried the thing tucking my arm into the bridge like you're talking about. So what I'd been doing is what you're saying for a weak side shot. I'll have like my forearm out and I'm resting, like my forearm is on the bridge and I'm resting the gun like over that.
Yeah.
And that's fine for a closer shot. I don't like it for longer just because there's a little bit of play, because I mean it's a rope with tension on it. So there's just like a little bit of play in it, and also like if your butt moves at all, like your entire setup is moving. So I like to get on the tree because that tree is 100% solid stationary. So it doesn't matter like if I'm like adjusting my hips or whatever, like the gun's not moving. Whereas if I'm rested solely on the bridge, if I move at all, like that whole scope is moving.
So this is another thing. I lean when I'm shooting like that. But if you want more solid where you're not moving, you tuck that right leg, that right knee into the tree, and it's not swaying at all. And we're gonna do a whole video on this because at the family farm at Anthony's farm, we can shoot up to 400 yards on steel targets, and there's a tree we can climb, and we're gonna do it showing how to shoot that far. I mean, maybe you're not gonna actually shoot a deer that far, but just showing like how it can work.
Yeah.
Because again, I feel extremely confident shooting a rifle out of a saddle. Like it is night and day different. Like, and like when I used to hunt a little lock-on stand, I would always put my backpack, and this is also for climber guys too, because a lot of guys with climbers, they try to shoot off the front rail. And if you're in like a summit climber, sometimes that works, but sometimes it doesn't. Like it doesn't, depend on like the angle high up a tree you climb. But what I would always do in a tree stand is I'd put my backpack in my lap and I would shoot off my backpack.
Yeah.
Where like again, like the closer you have that gun to you and you're not fully extended out, the more stability you're going to have. And you tuck that right. If you're shooting in a climber or a lock on, you put that backpack in your lap and you're able to tuck your elbow. And then, again, this only works though if that deer is like from like nearly 11 o'clock to 1 o'clock. If it's way over to the left or right hand side, you can kind of still use the backpack, but you're only going to have stability on your trigger arm, your back right elbow, or your right elbow kind of on the backpack, and your left hand's going to have the free hand, so it's still not as stable. But yeah, I mean, dude, there's if you feel not confident shooting out of a saddle, you need to go someplace where you can actually practice shooting out of the saddle, because I promise you, once you kind of do some of the things that we're talking about, you will feel extremely confident shooting a firearm out of a saddle.
Yeah, I'm eager to try the elbow and the bridge thing that you're talking about. All right, this one's from Riley Blackwell. He says, "Hey guys, for years I hunted on private land in Pickens County, Alabama. A buddy and I are going to start venturing into public lands this year. What are your best tips for scouting public land and making a transition from private to public land hunters?" What do you have for this one? This is an interesting question.
I mean, a lot of the stuff that you're probably doing in your hunting club can work on private.
Yeah.
To me, especially in Alabama, like a lot of the stuff I mean, if your hunting club or your lease is a lot of like timber managed property, like a lot of ponds, clear cuts, you can take a lot of what you're doing there and apply it to hunting public. It's just you may have to walk a little bit further. You don't always, but you may have to walk a little bit further just to kind of get away from where other guys may be trying to hunting at. But to me, a lot of that transitions. Now, the problem is if you're coming from a private land property where you only hunted food plots and bait piles, it's not a rude awakening, but you're going to have to do things a little bit differently on a piece of public land. Like you could have success killing a deer on food plots. Michael Perry was telling us there's a guy he knows that killed a big deer.
140-inch buck.
Yeah, and
on a public land food plot.
And Jamie McKay told me the same thing. Yeah. Like, you can kill big deer on public land food plots, but it has to be in the right situation, the right timing, and all that kind of play as a factor. But a lot of it is like you just got to kind of take like what is like if you've had success on a hunting club, especially outside of killing deer just on food plots or killing deer just over bait piles.
Yeah.
Start there and apply that to the public. Don't go hunt a piece of public land that looks nothing like the private you've hunted. Like, if you're used to hunting timber, like rolling hill country with clear cuts and all that kind of stuff, go find public that looks like that and hunt it exactly the same, and then kind of evolve from there. Because you're going to quickly realize, is it working or is it not working?
Mm-hmm.
And if you do that, you'll have a lot more success than just trying to do something completely different. Like, if you're coming from, hunting flat land, private land, and you're going to go hunt real steep hill country or more mountainous public, that's going to be a lot harder for you to transition versus trying to find something that looks similar to how, your private property is set up.
Yeah, the only thing I would add to that is I would just, if you're curious about where to start, like what to actually look for, I'd look for habitat edges and compounding features, those two things. Go listen to episode 141 with Josh Driver.
Or the new one. I
have no idea what episode.
I think it's 510.
No, I think Rick Cope is 510. 512.
Yeah, 512. Yeah, that's right. Sorry.
Go listen to 512, the Josh Driver episode. So, that's a really good starting point. But what I'm getting at is, especially he named where he's wanting to go hunt, and it's a place we're familiar with. Out there, you need to look for habitat transitions, which there's no shortage of where he's talking about, especially in that whole part of the state. There's no shortage of. Go look for where some thick young pines meet some tall old pines, or meet some hardwood. You know what I'm saying? Look for habitat edges. Go find where a swamp kind of bleeds out into some hardwoods. Go find where two different thickness of pines meet. Maybe it's thinned pines that are big pole timber that you could climb. Find where they meet a little pine savanna or something along those lines. Go start hitting those habitat transitions. And if you don't do anything else, just walk those transitions, and you're going to find something. You're going to start finding deer sign.
Yeah, you're going to find scrapes. You're going to find rubs, no doubt.
Yeah, and that's your starting point, and then you just got to figure it out from there.
Yep,
basically.
Awesome. Well, perfect. Well, guys, this will wrap up this episode. We appreciate y'all watching this episode on YouTube. Appreciate all the YouTube support. Appreciate all the comments as well. It's been great kind of seeing some of y'all's thought processes on these different episodes. Appreciate everybody also listening to the podcast. And again, remember, guys, you got a few days left for the first Black Friday sale, so you can go save on a bunch of gear. All of our favorite camo.
Yeah, and Onyx is 30% off right now. If you don't have your elite membership, Onyx 30% off.
Holy crap! Listen, guys, save big time. All right, so there's a ton of sales going on right now, especially as you're going to Black Friday. So it's a good time if you need to try to pick up a few more pieces of gear or find some stocking stuffers. If you got your buddy who always takes, say, your hunting club or private land or whatever, and he never knows where the hell he's at, and he hasn't downloaded Onyx or anything like that, just go buy him a membership, okay? Just help him out, stick in the stocking stuff. Hey, dude, listen, I'm tired of you asking me where you're going. Here you go. I'm dropping you a pin, dropping you a track. Go follow it.
That's right.
So,
but hey, gun season in Alabama, y'all better be going to Weaver's, baby. Weaver Meat Processing. Go check them out. Worth the drive. Best processing in the game.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Also, again, with gun season here in Alabama and a bunch of other states as well, pick up a Southern Outdoorsman Blaze Orange hat. Again, it's been really good luck for a lot of people. Okay? So, might kill your biggest buck ever wearing that hat right there. And then all the other hats. Again, appreciate everybody that's been buying merchandise from us. Again, working on some other ones. But again, we just got, the old school camo hat just came back in stock, along with, Andrew calls it the chocolate chip hat, the brown on brown. But again, appreciate all the support. Appreciate everybody listening. Appreciate everybody watching. Appreciate everybody following us on social media. And guys, remember, you're not going to want to miss Monday's episode. So y'all have a great weekend. Hopefully y'all kill some deer, submit some listener success stories. And remember, y'all stay Southern.